They do?
C++.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're way bigger than this slide. I think they,
Yeah, we
if I haven't
references.
updated the slide in a while.
And those.
And those are just the offices.
You know, they don't make them.
You don't think those are points of presence
To
or
use them,
CDN
and
or?
to use
No,
them,
no,
you
I
have
think
to do
that's-
a lock, and that will fail if it's
Yeah.
been deleted already.
Oh, right there. What's Cloudflare? Right there.
Otherwise.
That's your website.
It's probably like a sentence.
And you have to null it
There's
out.
probably a sentence on
They
there.
should,
So this is
yeah.
going out the.
You gotta give us you again.
Let's see,
Show
maybe
that,
storage time. No, that's what it is.
It actually
Oh,
goes
we
away.
got a lot of apps.
Maybe this is part of it,
You
just
still have
figure it
a
out.
pointer to it, so over here.
Actually,
It was destructed and then.
Manager DNS for our
Mhm.
nonprofit.
At the end of the week, it would have gone out.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows that it
You don't want copy it or anything?
didn't get rid of it.
That explains why you're so healthy. No, wait.
Because
I can see that.
It doesn't.
Okay. Cool.
We'll start in about 5 minutes after the pizza break.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to show, understand it all, what can and can't be passed, and
Mhm.
what can be shared.
So they do a lot of C for their game.
So they have some gaming, they're in C++, games, other writers that are in.
Yeah.
So with Unity, you can use Python.
Okay.
Cool. C sharp.
Yeah, I did see
So
here.
you can just make a new REPL.
Well, they say 135 data centers
Ruby,
in that
Java.
slide. Is that 135 purple purple circles?
So they usually give you some default code.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's more like
So they,
I lost count.
you know, you have free ones. And
Okay. And they can actually run it.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Ooh, 5,000.
So how many of you are not on my LinkedIn yet? Please send a request.
No, I did what,
Okay. I was wondering if I didn't approve it. Well, I would say, try to get on our LinkedIn because that's where I try to be more active than anything else. Twitter, I noticed, was an easy way to be famous, but LinkedIn was a way to get things done.
What's the password or,
For the Wi-Fi?
yes,
Well, the guest one is free. If you want for the members one, then say, what was it? #Texas, I think, all lowercase.
what?
#Texas?
The guest one is free.
Yeah.
Theoretically, what we guessed you're supposed to use.
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah.
I would say just go to the guest one. That's
Yeah,
free.
you're important, you get to use the members one.
Oh, yes, you know.
So I recognize most of you by face, but the ones who don't know me, I just wanted to share a part of the story. So about 10 years ago, right, as it was 11 years ago, 2008, I had one of my friends openly tell me that Indians are taking our jobs. And it hurt me a lot, because I don't realize that after spending $60,000, $70,000 to get a master's here, coming to a country which is actually way better than my own country, India, where I was born, in terms of equality, I would hear something like that. So there were two things that changed my life. One was that, one other thing my boss said at one point in time was, if you ever talk to my boss, your job is gonna go to your home country. So there are two things that I took, and I like to be very positive about things I take, and I like to take action. The reason I share that is because, small things create politics, and every 2 years we have an election in this country, and it's only meaning to divide us, and they get stronger every single moment, Neither Democrats give me anything, nor do Republicans, but all I know is I can lose friends if I start talking about politics. All I know is that, and that's the true thing, So the first thing when he said, that my boss, for 6 months, I was working on an app, and I would leave the office, and he'd be like, hey, you're doing great work, leave 4:30, go back, enjoy life. I'll still go back home and work on it. And what's interesting is, our bosses are very non-technical. So they only listen to that technical boss that knows a little bit of it. So your serious bosses and the CEO or whatever, they may not be that technical, you know? So he never saw my check-ins. He didn't see my check-ins coming at 2 in the morning. He didn't see my check-ins coming on Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday nights, you know? And he didn't realize the number one rank report built was for the company that was done by me in 2 months. They had been trying to build that for 2 years, which was interesting. But my boss said, hey, you ended up talking to my boss, and you ended up somehow telling him that you did some of this work. I was like, wait, none of that even started as a discussion. All I told him was that I ended up doing certain of these features, and the boss didn't know that I was doing that work for about 6 months. So my boss said, your job's gonna go to your home country, and that was the day I put a resignation, because my boss didn't know that I'd created a $10 million business back home in India, and the reason I was here wasn't money. The reason I was here because I was pissed with the corruption and the politics of India, which is one of the biggest reasons Indians leave India. And I'll tell you this, you walk up to most Indians, they own houses in India, and a minimum house is about $1 million. It gets inherited to them by their parents. They're not here for the money. Top 1% of Indians that comes in here doesn't come here for the money. So the second thing that I thought myself was, I'm gonna get a green card one day, I'm gonna start a business, and I'm gonna start a business that is not like any other business that's supposed to screw you. So my LinkedIn post, latest post is, check this out. We started a company, right? So just so you know, 75% of VC funded startups fail, less than 1% get funded. So you mean 0.25% startups actually survive. And when I started a tech company, services company, everyone was crazy. I said, I'm not gonna take any funding. I'm not gonna have any salespeople. I'm never gonna spend a dollar and dime. And now it's been a decade since I've been doing all of these things. And by the way, I said I'm gonna cut all American W-2 employees. I've never hired a single guy on visa. I've never hired a single person offshore, and I'm proud of that.
Why?
The simple reason is because I decided to create all American jobs. And I wanted to get money out of different countries. So right now my clients, China, India, Australia, Europe, North America, name a thing. And I bring money to this country and I create jobs here. By the way, when I say all American people, there's a lot of Chinese, Indians, and name a thing. All sorts of people are American people. They're still representing the rest of the world. And right now I think my employees are 90% white, and I don't have a problem with that. Anyone who can clear my interview needs to be in there, right? And if Indians can, and a lot of Indians can't, they are not gonna make it with my company because it's very simple. It's meritocracy based. I'm not running an election here. I'm trying to do the right thing for my clients, I'm trying to do the right thing for my employees. But the number one thing that I'm proud of is the minimum salary in my company at this point of time is $100,000. There's not a single company in the entire United States that can say that. Now, I'm not close to any billionaire out there. But I don't understand the math when one guy has $150 billion out of a company that doesn't pay taxes, that was not profitable for 20 years, because that was not American dream. The American dream is a guy like me coming in with literally no support whatsoever from anywhere, work with the smartest and the smartest of Americans, and create a company that gives back $100,000 minimum salary. You know what that means, right? My assistant makes $100,000 salary. That's what it means. Katie, you email Katie, she makes $100,000 salary. My CPA is different, but my accountant makes $100,000 salary. That's no joke. You get accountants here for $15, $20 an hour, just Google. Just go in Austin, right? It takes a lot to be positive. It's very easy to be negative, but it takes a lot to be positive. And those two negative statements, I wanted to show those people that I can be positive. And what happened? First, my boss's company, I took that company to a $2 million a year contract. The company was only making $500,000 a year business. In 2 years, he loses all that business when he lost me. Later, he came back to me and said, can you buy my company for $250K? No joke. That was my first one. And the second boss, I placed him at LinkedIn, my client, LinkedIn, I placed him over there, and we're friends. Now keep in mind, I'm friends with both of these people. I only wanted to show them one thing, that karma can make good things happen. And more than money, what's more important is good karma, right? And that's why I'm here, just so you know.
I'll send you a LinkedIn request.
Thank you, I will definitely take care of that.
But wouldn't you also say that like the reason that a lot of these companies like the one that you're talking about don't pay any taxes after they make a profit over $10 to $12 billion? Isn't that kind of rooted in the politics of it all?
Yeah, because they take that money and now they love you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I can't fix the world, right? I can only change my little world. That's what I try to do. I'm never gonna claim to make great things happen. So I was reading a lot of history, and the only time I could see in the past, in the history, there was no war, was India for a while, when they realized that they were, 35% of the world's GDP. I don't know how much you know about India, but in 17th century, India was 25% of the world's GDP, which is United States. Current United States
Yeah.
was 25% of the world's
You
GDP.
used to have a strong middle class at one time, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
If you go back, right, I mean,
100 years.
you look at India, right? I mean, I can go on and on about it, but think about it. Anything you say today, you talk about women's rights. India, you're talking 3000 BC. You had princes from all over the country come in, and you're talking at that time the country was all the way from Afghanistan to Vietnam, right?
Persian Empire, right?
Well, yeah, probably bigger than that, because Persian was still smaller. But if you look at that history, princes from different parts of the country come in 30 days, and they are supposed to do 1 week of war games, kind of, like showing their skills and every single thing. And a week later, this lady, the princess, goes and puts a garland on one guy's, neck, and everyone else is going back celebrating about her. Women rights, she gets to pick, the guys don't get to pick. You talk about freedom of religion, right, or freedom of speech. Buddhists, which were Hindus, technically the Hindus who were supposedly enlightened were called Buddhists, so there was not a different religion, but at least they were a different, sect at that time. These people would openly go in the town hall and say bad things about the king's religion, to the point that the king would listen to them and convert into Buddhism. So if you look at this, these societies have always been there, right? If you start reading all this, I mean, Da Vinci's, the statue that he built, the amazing one, where you have a human, and then he has another, arm, and he has another arm. If you look at it scientifically, it's all the latitudes and everything in the earth. And when they talk about the lady who killed the 14, chopped his husband's body into 14 parts, it had nothing to do with that. It only means latitudes. And they talk about 7 chakras. So Da Vinci knew all these things. Da Vinci knew things about, Egyptians, he knew things about Indians, and a lot of these civilizations in the past were actually way more advanced than you would think we are today. Like if you start reading Mahabharata, you're gonna find artificial intelligence. People just did not understand it. I growing up thought they were saying crappy things, But if you take Mahabharata, Krishna, everyone knows Krishna. So if you know Krishna, Krishna's #1 disciple is Arjun. Arjun had something called satellite weapons, because he used to use the satellite and throw weapons on the earth, and that's how he won the war. Now what's interesting is no one believed it until the Chinese, French, and Russian scientists started researching, and it turns out a lot of the meteors in this world, on this earth, are not meteors, because meteors are supposed to have iridium. And it did not have iridium, it had silica. A lot of that gets created out of nuclear weapons. So when they started reading the details, they're like, wait, where else has it been described? It turns out in Mahabharata war, they talk about that detail. Not only that, they actually talk about Bhim, Arjun's brother. What he used to do was he would send elephant-looking bodies up in the satellite. And everyone was like, wait a minute, you're sending these in space, how does that make any sense? You should read the detail. He also said that bodies would never die, they'll circulate the earth. But not only that, they talk about escape velocity. Now keep in mind, when British came to India, they decimated everything, and they wanted you to believe that Indians are just nothing more than tribals. So someone actually said that someone else created a decimal or a zero, which is just crazy. Because these guys figured out satellites and everything tens of thousands of years ago.
Yeah, I think those Indian myths are like 5,000 years old.
Yeah.
But like in current day, and I haven't gotten to ask anybody this, but I guess where are you at with what's going on in Kashmir right now?
Oh, I'm not gonna talk about politics there,
Okay.
but.
I'm just curious, like what.
But the bottom line is that whatever we do, right, as a country, we're 25% of the world's GDP now, which is India in 1700. What happened in the next 2 years? It was taken away. But people who just want to plunder, and that's what's happening to Americans right now. What happened to Indians? Indians are fighting each other. We're fighting each other. The last thing we want to do is fight each other and make others more prominent. Because I think we're at the point that anything can happen. So anyways, those are the reasons I do these talks, just so you know, tech is easy. Yeah, I mean, last recession, I was living in Irving, and before that, never in Irving I had seen a robbery, but every week in Irving I would see a robbery. Last recession. One Indian was shot for 8 straight months in the United States. 8 straight months by one guy that was later caught. And all these Indians were from Andhra Pradesh. I'm not from Andhra Pradesh, just so you know. So, if you know any shooters, tell them that he's not one of those guys. they're good people. Anyways, let's start. So you know VAR, right? VAR and LET. So my explanation of LET is that VAR is what LET should be. Because LET is very simply, scope to the nearest nearest enclosing block, and var is only enclosed to a function block. So let's just do something simple so your code runs. So we'll talk about the Kashmir issue, but in short, it was an unconstitutional draconian law that got repealed, interestingly, which I didn't know until literally a couple of weeks ago that was the case. So for example, if you're a woman who is born in Kashmir and you marry anyone outside Kashmir, any Indian or any foreigner for that matter, you would lose all your property. Those were the kind of laws that somehow got passed unconstitutionally. It was passed by the president. Indian president doesn't have the power. The prime minister and the Congress has the power. So president is like a titular head, doesn't really have the power, and he ended up doing it somehow, and they just removed it. But it's an interesting place for all the world powers, because Kashmir is, interesting, because there's a history of terrorism and all that kind of stuff over there.
And Modi's the prime minister, right?
Yeah, so Modi ended up doing it, which I was like, man, you have to have some serious guts to try something like that. Because, point is simple, like, he could literally be killed for that. There's a lot of powers against, doing a lot of things in Kashmir, let's put it that way. Alright, what happened? Did we mess up something big? Is everyone coding?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So for a lot of you, it will be a lot of beginner stuff, but there will be probably some good stuff too. Oh yeah, that's what happens when you use autocomplete. I was actually referencing TypeScript in HTML, bad idea.
That converts it to JS, right?
I did that. Oh, so it hasn't converted it in JS. So if you're using WebStorm, what you might want to do is, it's like a shortcut. Anytime there's a change, it'll recompile it. So that's right there. So your types.js file will come in, or you could just use tsconfig.json and create one of those, and then use GSC. That will take forever. So we have iPhone right there. So at least this works. So all I did is have an index.html right here. Really all I need is this line and that's it. Once I add TypeScript, I'm recompiling on changes, I'm good to go. Does everyone know what an IFI is? IFI is immediately invoked function expression. So when your boss asks you, you know the solution, you're like, yeah, I know a solution, but it's a little iffy. So what do you think the answer is? So if I run this, what would be the value of x? So you have an error. The reason you have an error is because var is scoped to a function, and I'm running the function right there. So these double, so you see this parentheses here and these two here, basically it's executing the function. I could have simply gone, var function equals to whatever, and then ran the function. I just did a shortcut right there. Since var is function scope, it's going to be an error. If I remove the var, though, this is what you get. You get x is 30. Now, here's the problem with a lot of bloggers out there. They somehow think that var and no var makes no difference whatsoever. And a lot of people tell you use var. Var, I think, is evil for a lot of reasons, but let's take some reasons here. So for example, we got var x equals to 30, and then y equals to 20, right? So these are typical JavaScript problems, and we'll look at that that in a second. So TypeScript can run JavaScript as it is. I'm simply writing JavaScript, but it doesn't care because it'll still work. So in this case, if you notice, you see that y is not defined. However, I was able to see x, which is 30 both times. So I deleted x, and it still shows up. So this is one of my favorite questions when it comes to someone coming to me like, I'm a JavaScript expert, I want $250K salary. I'm like, all right, tell me the difference between var x equals to 10 and x equals to 10 without a var. You'd be surprised, 29 different cities in the entire world, no one's ever given that answer. But the answer is this, that if you have a var and you declare globally any variable with a var, you will not be able to delete it. And that's really bad. So that's why var is one of the reasons var is evil. Be very, very careful what you're doing. Because think about this, right? You're on a single page app and now all of a sudden you have a grid and the grid has 100 records and you want to do paging with it and now you're on page number 5, you don't need the grid. For some reason you said, okay, delete the grid. It wouldn't get deleted, it's still staying in the memory. And imagine that single page app bloating. We go to a lot of applications where they're like, it's great, but after it's been on for like 2 hours, it just doesn't work the way, and I have to go do it again, and I lost my state, and name again, you have all sorts of issues. So this is the beginning of it. We look for vars first, just so you know. This is a small.
But that's only if it's
though.
globally scoped though, right? If it's scoped to the function,
Yeah, if it is.
right?
If it's at the scope level, at the function level, then it won't matter.
Right.
Right, but then there are other issues, so let's look into those issues. So let's say you are in the function scope, right? So you've got something like this. So you got var equals to 20, and I came in here and I said, all right, I've got var x equals to 30. I know some of you have been in my JavaScript talk, so you probably know the answer. So if you know, just don't say it. Can anyone tell me the values of x's? Now, the way it executes, right?
So 20 to 30.
Alright, sorry.
Comment does not look right.
I don't know what's going on with my shortcuts. This is what happens when you are on the same ID but in different machines. Alright, so where's the refactor? That's exactly what it is. Alright, let's try again. Oh, that worked. Perfect. So line number 8, line number 10, line number 13. That's the order of execution. Can anyone tell me what's going to be line number 8? If you're smart, you're going to get it wrong. Or if you know the answer, you'll get it right. But if you get the answer right, you're really dumb. Let's put it that way. Because it's not something you would expect. So you're smart people, so I'm assuming you got the answer wrong. Look at that. The answer is undefined. So this is the problem with var in a scope. What happens is, JavaScript compiler, and it is a compiler just so you know, it's not an interpreter. Well, you've got var x equals to defined automatically added by the compiler anytime you declare var if it is not declared on top of the function. So it works like C, but it likes to let you declare it like C++ or C#. You know how in C you can't do that, you have to declare on the top of the function only.
Yeah.
So it kind of works like C, but it lets you declare it anywhere else. So now it gets it, oh, wait a minute, that was undefined, all right? But now you did this and it changed. Now let me remove that. So what if I had X here? You'd be surprised that that problem would happen. Why is that? Because var gone out of X means it's global now. Does it make sense?
Go back to the output again.
So you get 20, 30, and then 30.
Okay.
The
So
reason is
you
because
just- you
this is a
just
global
changed it.
var, and
Uh-huh.
this value is basically this guy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But if you had a local var, right, I mean local x, sorry, if you had a var, you had a local x, then it would have been something like this. Then it would have,
Then there would be undefined
exactly,
30 and then
because it will
20.
automatically create that line for you.
Yeah.
So that's the issue.
Okay.
So this is very well known as hoisting, and that's one of the big problems with var is that it's kind of hosting. Now, you do let, all these problems go away. So, you know, if I use let here, it wouldn't really matter. It'll matter in a different way, because it's like, hey, how can you use X before the initialization? So it's already giving you that error right there. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of let, is that it does that. Now, you wanna see more problems with var?
Does let you delete?
Yeah. Let basically was introduced later in ECMAScript 2015 to fix all the problems. The only issue is that let doesn't go backwards, so you can't use it in ES5, which is for a lot of people, that's the current version of JavaScript.
I see a lot of people using let though. I mean, so you're saying that we shouldn't be using let?
Well, in TypeScript, use let, because what they do is they'll automatically
They
change
convert
it.
it for you?
Exactly.
Or if you're certain it's a modern browser.
Yeah.
Check that out. So you've got X is 20, right? Did you expect 20 here? 20 was printed 20 times, just so you know, that's how Chrome does it. So Chrome is saying 20 times, I printed 20, right? So let's just make it 10. So you'll see the difference. So 10 got printed 10 times, whereas you wanted to print a simple loop. Let's change that to let. It takes a while.
Do you wanna do
I don't know why.
I or?
I'll tell you why, this is WebStorm making it happen, great. X is not defined?
Yeah.
Why? I just defined it.
No. You said that's I.
Oh.
I.
Sorry.
Yeah, you want
Different.
Actually, you want it,
Oh, let's do it for var then first, just to make sure we're on the
so
same
that's
page.
I.
X went all the way to 10. Yeah, I tell you why.
That's a local var, so it's okay, right?
Hold on. Let's not get too excited about this, because JavaScript is the most illogical language ever created.
Amen.
You know, the whole idea was, they're like, 5 people got in a room and like, we're gonna make all the smart people in the world think they're idiots. And we're gonna create a language like that, and they did succeed for 20 years. Now they're fixing it, sorry.
Are they with
These are just jokes.
with WebAssembly?
I don't know how many people created it.
Wow, you know,
Uh,
doesn't bother me.
yeah.
One, not
Are you?
5, one.
Really?
One guy created JavaScript?
Brandon Ike, in 3 weeks, took a scheme interpreter and made JavaScript. That's the oversimplified version.
Wow, that is crazy. We just saw that. That is interesting to me. The var. Hold on, let me see if I have this example here. Oh yeah, I tell you why, because I forgot the set timeout. That was the key. That's what happens when you talk. Alright. So the idea was that I wanted to take the value and then put it in set timeout because I wanted to give it some time, right? So what I really wanted to do was the execution to be done for the for loop. Once the execution of the for loop is done, then I'll look for the value, right? So check this out. If I do a let in here, by the way, you can see, what is JavaScript coming up? We're in index of HTML, we're in the JavaScript. So you see that? Now I got the right values. But previously, when I had a var, I got 10 times. Why is that? Because var is now constantly increasing the value of I, which becomes 10 because it's I++, so it's not 9, it's 10. And then it's 100 milliseconds later that thing happened. By the way, I didn't even give it anything. I just said set timeout. I could have set 100 milliseconds or something to be safe, but it was so fast that it didn't even matter. So you see, we only get 10 times, which is a wrong thing. You don't want that, right? So let, which is surprising, the let is working, but it won't work in your regular code. It's just WebStorm doing the magic. It's probably using a better version of ECMAScript, and that's probably because my WebStorm has it to ES15 or 2016, something like that. Otherwise, in real code, it wouldn't work in JavaScript ES5, because that doesn't work.
Like in TypeScript, when would you want to use var instead of let though? It seems like
You would always want to use,
let. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I can never get anyone to say definitively.
well, the only only time you use a var is when you wanna be really dynamic and you're doing things that, are very advanced. For example, you know, I'm on purpose wanting to use the hoisting feature because I have a reason behind it, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's like var is so much more powerful in one way because it's giving you so much power, but you know, with greater power comes greater responsibility.
Yeah.
Like for example, in our team, the rule is simple: if you're a junior developer, less than 5 years experience, you just can't use a var.
Mhm.
You better ask us why you're using a var. You know, simple. So you know, with JavaScript, our biggest issue has been not like we know JavaScript or not. We really understand JavaScript, but a lot of times there are clients that don't understand JavaScript. You have 60 people from the client. Now we see bugs coming in like anything. You know, I mean, don't go far. Google Angular team, when they left using, they stopped using JavaScript for a week, they had 26 bugs. No joke. And those are one of the smartest people out there, right? Yeah. That tells you something about that team. Don't know. I like that team now, trust me. This was about 4 or 5 years ago when they were getting all the heat. A lot of the bad ones have left. Actually, pretty much everyone now is really good. But they've delivered really well in the last 2-3 years too. I personally don't like them for about a couple of years because they were so slow behind, you know. I mean, but now they've bumped up their game like anything. They're really good. All right, so that was simple TypeScript. You know, functions. Let's do a function, simple function. Now, I picked some of these examples because mostly, you know, easy part is kind of clear, but the other things are usually not clear. So when we do our trainings, right, the interesting thing for our company isn't really, hey, let me teach you TypeScript. We try to teach you things that we see are done incorrectly. Because when you come and do a training, everyone's like, oh yeah, this is easy, we're gonna get it done, awesome. Then you look at the source code and it wasn't really anything you ever trained them on. And that's the interesting part of consulting. Especially working with a lot of bigger teams, because you'll get all sorts of code. You'll get offshore code, which is the one I love the most, trust me. As long as offshore is alive, I'll have a job. You know, Boeing guys, they pay $9 an hour to people in India, great. And what happened? United States GDP decreased by 0.4% the last quarter. We're at 2.1%, we would have been at 2.5% thanks to Boeing's saving money. You never save money going offshore. Look at that. The type number is not assignable to type string. Cool? You see that? This is simple because it inferred the value. By the way, I never said here, by the way, I never said the type is not a number. I never said that. I did not give it a type. So it inferred the type, which is smart, right? It's like, hey, maybe you've got something wrong going on, alright, fine. Okay, so this is the division, right? You would expect that. However, now you don't see the problem with a plus. Why is that? Yeah, because it will actually just add 10 to hello. You see? This is stuff we like to see in offshore code. I mean, I might have told you about this, but we are a client in town spent $45 million on their big application that used to make them about $10 billion a year. They delayed by 6 years and they wasted $45 million. The project was completely thrown out of the way. We looked at it, we didn't know it was 6 years. We looked at it going, our team could do this with about, you know, maybe 12 people, you know, 15 people in about 24 months, 18 to 24 months. And then while we were coding, in 2 days, we were able to get a call down from 23 seconds to like 28 milliseconds. And that's where our team decided that we could actually rewrite this thing in 12 to 18 months. We ended up rewriting that in 10 months. We probably charged the client maybe $3 million. Currently, the app only makes $5 billion a year. In the 6 years, if you were to think that they lost 45 million, hell no. They lost about a $5 billion a year revenue that is going to their competition because their app was slow and things were not very good. So a lot of companies don't do that math up front. They look at this kind of, well, this guy's gonna charge me this much money, why would I wanna bring him in? That's how they look at it. You know, so cheap is very cheap and cheap is wrong in the long run. Does everyone understand what happened here?
Mhm.
So you'll notice one thing, that my own code, I have a tendency to use var, but my recommendation is to use let. And that's because I've been using var and I like it because it gives me a lot of benefits. I don't know if you were in my talk where I talked about performance on mobile. We actually use eval quite a bit. and so does Google. If you look at Google's, have you ever used a Google Gmail on your web? So if you don't use the app, you just go in the browser, what they do is they'll comment their code that does compose, because most people just read the email on the web and don't respond. They just don't wanna do that. On the phone, they mostly don't respond. And most of the time, they will still respond, but they'll barely use compose. So interestingly, what they do is, and we do it a lot too, is we actually comment our code. The benefit of that is that anytime, the first time there's running compose, we say eval, and eval the code. Now, we uncomment it and we eval it. Now, a lot of people will tell you eval's bad, eval's bad. Yes, exactly, if it is not your code. If you're evaling a third party's code, it's awful. It's bad for security, it's bad for all sorts of reasons, but if it's your own code, no problem whatsoever. It's a one-time hit, and for performance, it works way better than anything else. So, for that reason, we use eval. So that's why I was explaining that you might see certain things in my code that I don't recommend, because at the end of the day, when we're coding with other people, we're looking at more like how to prevent the lowest common denominator from taking the ship down. Let's put it that way. Which is very important, by the way. We learned it the hard way that it's not about writing the greatest and the best code that is so complicated that people don't like it and can't understand it. There was a time when the best architects were the ones who wrote the code that no one can understand in the company. That was like till 10 years ago. That was okay. Now they lose jobs. They literally lose jobs for doing something like that. Honestly, they're replaced for that reason. If you're not simple enough, simplistic enough, you're out the door. Until 10 years ago, it was a joke. The joke was like, bring in Accenture or Deloitte or Microsoft Consulting Services, you're not going to lose your job. I'm so proud. In the last 10 years, we've only taken projects that have been failed by all these companies. Otherwise, we would not have had any business. So, interestingly, now CIOs lose jobs for bringing in an Accenture or Deloitte or anyone else. They do. We have Dell CIO who was fired a few years ago, right here in town. Brought Deloitte for a $300 million project that never got through. That was just a few years ago. Paul Walsh.
But he tried to bring in Deloitte.
Exactly. Thank you. That's the reason he got fired, is because Deloitte never gets anything done, right?
True that.
So the good news with Deloitte is, and I've talked to a lot of, not just Deloitte, a lot of these big corporations, meet their salespeople. You know what they're told? Start with 10 people, make it 20 in 3 months. Make it 100 in a year, and you have a bigger bonus. How is that good for your company? It's not, because they're only adding people. Where do they add people from? Mostly India. No joke. Seriously, go to any company that is right now having more than 100 consultants, or any of these companies, half of them are coming from India, or more. Well, let me tell you something about the Indians. The top Indians go to the United States. It's just a thing. You grow up like, I want to be in the United States, I want to be married to a white girl. That's like their dream, and they don't live it, I live it, my wife is white, let's just be clear. And that's how they're raised, like, oh my gosh, one day if you're a white girl, that's like a big deal for you, whatever. Anyway, so next is like, go to the United States, or if you don't make it to the United States, you're gonna have a really bad time, you're probably gonna be having a really bad career, wherever you take it. Maybe you end up in Canada because you may have a way to, jump off the fence and get to the United States. If you don't get to Canada, try Germany, right? And then if you don't get there, go Ireland, UK, but worst case, you go to Australia, you'll get beaten up because Australians think of Indians as farmers, and Australians have a bunch of white farmers that are very racist towards Indians for some reasons, right? It's like something you'll never hear here, but go to Australia, pull up Australian news, I read it all the time. They just have this habit of beating up Indians. So keep in mind, most of the Indians that go over there are either chefs, they're running, they're farmers, they're chefs, they're doing all sorts of things. They are taxi drivers. So Indians in UK, US is interesting. You look at us as IT people or doctors, You go to Saudi Arabia, you look at us as, maybe, what's it called, blue-collar workers that barely have money or food to eat. That's how they look at us. So Indians have a different view in every country you go to. So now keep in mind, who's left in India? The one who couldn't get anywhere. And those are the ones you ship your jobs off to, and you expect the same things as, oh my god, that Indian guy who came here worked really well, right? Well, the big reason the Indians are successful here is they have no family. So they're going to work their evenings, they're going to work their weekends, they're working all the time. They have no social life, as you know, right? You go to Indian parties, Sometimes I get invited, I'm the only one with a non-Indian, which is my wife, who's white, you know. They all have Indian parties all the time. They're still living in India, they're still living in a lie. They just don't grow over that, right? But first generation, this is your problem, you're gonna be stuck with that. So anyways, you got the point here on TypeScript, but you wanna know more about Indians. And they can't even fix their accent, let's just be clear, right? I'm from a part of the country that's how I used to speak when I grew up, right? The only difference is I used to say can't and, you know, fast, and now I'm trying to change it to fast and can't, you know, and sometimes I still flip. But this is how I spoke. But you go to rest of India, which is mostly south of me, because I'm like way north in the Himalayas. And by the way, it's Himalayas, because I was born there, just to be clear. I know how to say Himalayas, but it isn't Himalayas, because I was born there. So, they just don't even change their accent, and they just stay the same way they are. Poor guys. And you expect that guy to work the same way as this guy's working? You know how hard it is for Indians to get to work on time? First 3 years in America? Because in India, if you get there on time, it means you have nothing good to do. Like I went to a wedding at 8 p.m. and the wedding was supposed to start at 7 p.m. It's like, oh, you're a little early. I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, I forgot it. It's at least 2 or 2.5 hours. Now I'm not important, you know? Maybe you don't have a job. Maybe you're here for networking. So it's a cultural difference. You know mañana, right? What is mañana? It's not just Mexican culture. I mean, it's the rest of the world culture. You know, just take a few countries out of it. US is always on time. Everything else is mañana. So culturally, you've given work to people who have mañana in their culture. Let's just be clear about it. And the big reason we have to work here is because we have to make the richer richer. Simple. Right? When I got to this country, I'm like, what am I going to do with money? So I had 4 offers in 2008. The first top offer was $85K with Match.com. Second offer, Microsoft, $80,000. My final and the worst offer was $68,000 with Unifocus, which is a $7 million company. Guess what I chose? $68,000. Because I'm like, what am I going to do with money? I didn't realize every single insurance here is really designed in a way to make sure that the middle class never becomes rich. You don't have that in India. I never realized that house tax is so crazy. I didn't realize that your child support payments are so awful that a billionaire pays the same amount of money as an 85K. You know your child support is $1,700 for 85K guy who makes an 85K salary at the same time a billionaire. A billionaire can get away with just paying $1,700 a month. I didn't realize this country was so skewed in the favor of the rich. So I was like, 68K, what am I gonna do with that money? That's money to, you know, literally create another Australia. Are you kidding me?
Child support is really dependent on the state you're in too.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so Texas is good for billionaires, let's put it that way.
Yes.
Well, Texas is good for billionaires everywhere around.
Anyways, you got the point here. These are different numbers, and they all are numbers of different types. Hello, 3116, whatever. They're actually the same number. I just converted them into different numbers. That's why I was cheating. Basically, they're all types, but the good news with ECMAScript 2015 onwards is that now you say for octal, you say 0O, so that's how you know it's an octal number. If it's binary, you say 0B, you know, hex, 0x, and then, you know, decimal is simple decimal. Now, do remember that if you still do something like hex equals to whatever, it will be an error, and TypeScript shows you that error right there. Then, you probably know this one. By the way, I suggest to put types everywhere, even though it's clear, and you could have gotten away with doing this, and let it infer it. You're better off doing it this way, because then you make it a rule in your team that, hey, I know looking at this what it was, right? So let's say I'm saying greeting equals, this is cool, I like this. This is a backtick, by the way. This is not a quote. And
Could you make lint enforce that?
yeah, you could do all of that in Lint.
Okay.
I wouldn't enforce it because there are times when I don't want to do it, just to keep something open. So you want to have the power, but you just tell the team to do it. It's just a good habit, and if it is not, like, you know, someone else can go fix it. It's not a big deal. Remember multi-line /r/n and everything? Now that you have the backticks, it's so cool. Did I print it?
Which one did it get you? Did it get you /r/n or just /n?
It gives you everything. So look at this. It formats that according to how you wrote it.
Well, yeah, but it could have done that with just /n.
Yeah. Well, if, no, you don't really need that. If you had a quart, yeah, you would have needed that. So if you have a quart, right, so you need to do something like this. Now, you could do whatever, and let's see if I'm printing it, am I printing it? No? Let's print the first one. See, it got you there anyways. But what you're also doing is now you have a quart here, then you have to have a plus, and then you have to go to the next line, you know, you gotta create that, and then another plus, you know, it's a lot of work. This is cool?
Mm-hmm.
And do you see this one? This is everywhere now, so this is like your string dot format in C# or
it's
something like
string
that.
interpolation.
Totally, so it's cool.
Yeah. I didn't know, that was. IntelliSense picks it up too, which is cool.
So you know generics, you could do something like that. This is the funny one. I don't know, if you don't know this, then it's interesting for the first time. So the ones who know, no need to answer, but the others who don't know, you wanna guess? Tell me what the values will be. I should have said value. So what's line number 33 gonna print? It's gonna print 3 values, right? What is it gonna print? You think 1, 2, 3,
Sorry about that.
right?
Yeah.
Look at that, 0, 1, 2. Why is that? Just to make it clear and more obvious, it's 0, 1, 2.
So do,
Check that out. It's printing the indices. So in is in index, right? Look at that way. And then if you want the values is of. So cool.
so if you did in and did bracket, well, actually, no, it's just.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that.
Okay.
How
So-
did you get just the?
Then do values.
Well, then just do a simple for loop in that case.
Yeah, but if you did in and then you did values, bracket value, that would give you your numbers, right? Okay.
That you'll get anyways, but you need the index then.
Right,
See,
right,
that's-
but, yeah, but it's giving you the
Totally,
index.
I get that.
Yeah.
So what he's saying, let's just make sure that we're clear on what he's saying, right? So what he's saying is use this. That's what he wants to do, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because value will still be that, right? But it's an expensive operation now,
Right.
because you're doing too much work here. You got a question, sorry?
Oh, she answered it already.
Oh, okay, cool.
It was just the to print the indexes.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome, so you know enums, right? So here, the example I'm gonna give is interesting. This one's easy actually. Enums everyone knows, so let's just make it simple. You could do something like this. So if you said 1 Tuesday, right, Wednesday, it's gonna start from 1 now, because I told it to start from 1. If I made it 10, it'll become 11 and 12. Otherwise, if you don't give any of these, then it's 0, 1, and 2. And you can access them the same way, like you could do day and then bracket of 2. So if you wanna, you know, let's say, print this, there are different ways to print it, but so something like, you could do that, and you can get the value out too. So day 2 will now be, in this case, it'll be, there will be no value actually, unless you add something like 0 equals 2. Day 2 would be Wednesday in this case, because it's 0, 1, 2. But if you had, let's say 2 here, then it'll be 3 automatically, and the next one is 4, unless you went and said this is 6, for some reasons. You can give those values if you want to. But otherwise it's gonna go in a sequence. So enums are easy, let's not worry about that. Generics, by the way, this array of number, you could have also done it this way. Number,
Just bracket.
yeah, so that's a number array, no difference. Actually, performance-wise, no difference either. One of my favorite features of TypeScript is array destructuring. So let's say you know what you're getting back, and you know it's an iPhone, and you don't really know what the other things are gonna be. The first one is, let's say, for some reasons, an iPhone. Oh, come on. So you see what happened? I could now print iPhone, right there. And then rest would give me all the rest of the values. So if there was something else here, all of that would be here, and it's nothing more than an array that I can work with. So you check this out. I got S8, Surface, ASDF, everything. You see that? And iPhone got printed as iPhone. It's really cool, but this is the beginning of what I like. The better one I like is, actually let me just show you something else in a minute. So you could also do this, by the way. For some reason, let's say you don't really know what you are gonna get, but for some reasons that you know the second one was S8 for that matter, then you have S8. As long as you have the right commas, you do that. Not something I do, but good to know that you have it. And then, so this is destructuring. My favorite feature actually is object destructuring, because that's something I use more than array destructuring, because array could be tricky. Now, destructuring in case of an object is really cool. I'll show that in a second, but let me show you what a spread is. Yeah, you can do that. So, let's say I've got something called operating systems. You know, I say something like Windows. What else do we have? OS X, Linux, whatever. And now I could use destructuring or whatever for something like this, but I could also create something else. Let's say you see, I could take that rest from there and put it right here. And I can also give it more values if I wanted to. Now, this is not something I recommend because there are no types here, so I'm able to put anything whatsoever. I'm basically just making it like a regular JavaScript object, but you should be careful what you put in here, because currently I can put a function in it, I can put an object in it, I can put anything I want to. This is a very dynamic array. But the good news is you could use REST and now you're spreading it out. So the previous one was destructuring, this is about spreading. It's kind of neat. How many of you know what a tuple is?
Mm-hmm.
Where have you used tuples?
I guess if you're maybe returning more than one type of thing.
Yeah, that's right. What language?
C#.
Cool, so this is a little different. What's funny is that Anders Helsberg is the guy who created C# as well as TypeScript, but it was very clear that they were going after the Java guys. So they stole every single thing from Java, literally, because they wanted the syntax to look very Java-like. You know, they don't say colon, they say implements. You know, it's like they went for the verbose Java syntax, which isn't really as good. I mean, C# is better, but they still went with it. Which actually worked because, huh?
Amen on that.
They what?
Amen on C# being better.
Yeah. Well, Java, I was a Java guy, by the way. I started with Java. I still do Java, but Java after Oracle has been a mess, and they've been stealing a lot from C#. So I'm not a religious guy at the end of the day. I do so many technologies that to me doesn't matter. When people get crazy about it, it's like wow. So you see what happened here? X0 is of type string, so I could do substring, but X1 it's going to complain. However, can anyone tell me what's going to happen if I do this? X200 equals to this, what's going to happen? It's giving me an error, but it actually works in JavaScript. So if we let this code fly, the compiler, it'll work because JavaScript allows you to be dynamic. It's only giving you an error because it kind of knows, hey, by the way, it's not assignable to type undefined, you want to fix something here, which is a good thing, but if you want it to, it'll work. Alright, and then of course, if you did something like any other thing like Boolean or whatever, it still wouldn't work. Now, tuple destructuring is a little different and it's interesting. So let's create a complicated example. I've got a number here, I've got a string and an object.
Yeah, I was just trying to delete it by 200.
One, what is it? What do I have here? String. Right. Let's just say Caston. Title, whatever. This is an object. check this out. This is destructuring, but this is for a tuple. And you can do it. So this works. Now there's a little bit of difference between what you would think is destructuring for arrays versus here. So check this out. Let's do this. 2, 3, iPhone, second, third, fourth, fifth. You see how it's complaining? Initializer provides no value for binding element, and the binding element has no default value. And it'll basically do the same thing for the other one. You know what happened here? Why is 4? Oh,
2, 3.
sorry. Because that's already declared, with a let block, that's all it was. That's what happens when you start using all these things. Let's just get rid of all of that. So technically what happens is when you actually run in JavaScript, this fifth would not really matter, it would actually run. In case of a tuple, it's gonna break. But either way, whenever you see a red squiggly, the point is it's a danger sign, let's just not even go that route. So tuple, as you know, right, I want multiple different types to be okay. So I define that tuple, and now I'm constraining any of that, parameter or whatever passed to the function to be of those types only. And this is possible, because you could be saying like, hey, I'm okay with, in this case, I'm okay with a string and a number both. Because as long as the person is passing a string or a number, I'm gonna take care of it. And that happens in cases like IDs and all that kind of stuff. So what's next? Yeah. So my favorite feature, you probably like this because you have come across offshore code, which is basically like, I should have said model. So in JavaScript, it's crazy when you see like an object with 100 lines of code. Seriously, you have a lot of those. I think I showed a couple of years ago bad files from one of my clients. So we went to the client's legal department. We're like, we would like to show this code to the rest of the world because it was awfully written and it's not in production anymore because of those reasons. But there's still a page that has it. And the clients, like lawyers, how they do it, like back and forth for 3 months. Turns out our lawyer got a little smart and he goes, you realize that it's actually code live on their website. They can't do anything live. So if you don't want to name the client because you don't want to piss them off, just go around and show this code, right? So I showed this code in the user group here, and we were literally paid money for months to rip off 85% of the code. And it was crazy, that code. I don't know if you remember, but they had like 40 Gs and all, and it was like too much stuff going on over there. But long story short was, there was AngularJS piece where they were doing two-way data binding on every single property. And on every single property on the object, they had a valid as well as invalid flag. Can you believe this? So imagine, what are you gonna check? Are you gonna check for the valid property or the invalid property? And when you set it, you're gonna have to remember to set the valid as well as invalid property. On every single property on the object, you saw that. And this object was like big, it's like 80 or something. Let me see if I can pull it up.
They have a validation library that was wanting that.
Oh, trust me, I don't even know how they got away with that. That code is in production, just so you know.
Yeah.
Oh, check that out. If I'm able to pull this, that's awesome. Ooh, yeah, love it. Oh my gosh, look at that stuff. Here, let's just search.
I want to see AngularJS.
Valid. Valid. That's it. Where would it be? Code detail? Let's see, I think it was that. was so excited after seeing this. Give me just a second. That's a different one. Create controller. Yep, right there. Check that out. Look at this guy. Quote header valid, invalid. Customer number valid, invalid. And like, wait, are you kidding me? Like seriously, it's everywhere on every single property. Like, why do you need the second one? And what do you do when you set it? No one's gonna remember to set the invalid one. And a lot of times you will have valid and invalid both. And look at this. This object is, check this out. Like this object starts at, it's 81, line number 81, right? So let's say 80. It's starting right here at 14. This is the object. So line number 14 to 80, you have that object, which is unnecessarily big. And they're doing two-way data mining on every single property when they don't need to. And remember when everyone was like, Angular is so slow, whatever? It was actually, Angular was never slower than React. You know, you could bring me the best React guy out there, and we do React all the time, trust me. It was never as slow as React was. Angular's best case scenario was always faster than React, even till today. It goes to 100 to 120 paints a second. React only goes to 80 paints a second, even till today. Interestingly, people are like Angular slow, Angular slow, Angular slow. Angular wasn't slow. 80% of the code was because there was two-way data binding that was never required, and they had a really bad way to dirty check the DOM, which I think was a problem. And that's how they fixed it with, you know, their, what is that thing called now? Change detection. And they did a very good job with change detection. But still, at that time, React was 45 paints a second. Vue barely ever got to 60 paints a second. And it's crazy how this kind of code is what we love to show in our trainings, because we're like, look, we can tell you the best way of doing training. That's not what you're gonna do. You're gonna end up doing things you like to do, and let me tell you what not to do, because that's more important. Now check this code, right? Look at this. This is an example of offshore code. Look at this guy. Look at how they're creating that function. Look at that big object. First of all, who calls address object in the first place, you know? Look at this, there's a watch. By default, everything has a watch, but they added a watch on every single property right there. Look at that. The same code again and again. Look at this. This code is written by a junior developer. And this code is written by a senior developer. They're doing the same thing, except just a few lines above, the junior developer did not realize that he is removing the state information. He's just making a location.url because he Googled it, how to do it, and he forgot. But look at the senior dev. He's smart. He knows that that's how you send it, you know, send your state array. Check this out. You want to see this? This is repeated every single place. Look at this. This, right there, right? I mean, this is a library. Everything is in one file, first of all. Look at that. Again, I mean, this doesn't take any intelligence whatsoever to rip this code off, honestly. I mean, I don't want to be paid for any of this kind of stuff. But this is what they do, right? I mean, offshore code is like this because they're paid to write more code. They're like, well, let's weigh it by the bytes, and let's pay you that way. Because honestly, they're really getting paid really bad anyways. So keep going. I mean, there's really not much in this code except, I mean, if you have to look at it, they've really not done anything of value here. They could have literally done that one thing one time on every single object if they were so concerned about any of that. And by the way, this code doesn't work the way you would think it works. This doesn't work. So for example, you've got this underscore each, it's gonna go through 10,000 items. The problem with that is, if you wanna break out of that code and you think you can, you just can't. You have to go to the entire 10,000 items. So in certain places, you will notice these people will look for something called, let's see if I can find you a good example. But by the way, it's all over the place. All right, look at that. Now look at this. If you have 10,000 items in the discount list, even if duplicate is returned true, it will still execute to the rest. So let's assume the fifth element was duplicate, it will still go to the rest of the items. And it's all over the place. Look at this. Underscore each twice. Now you've got an order of n squared algorithm going on over there, you know? I mean, their performance, I mean, no joke. What we fixed in 2 days was 23-second call to 28 millisecond. I got a blog about that on my website. But I love these people because if they were not doing these kind of things, you know, no one would know our value. So it's like awesome. I would want more of these kind of people, you know.
You think they would have done better had they used TypeScript?
Oh yeah. Well,
How much better?
how much better? You're right.
Better, but
So if you are planning to go offshore with TypeScript, let me tell you this, you're still gonna fail. Nothing wrong with that. So check this out, right? Actually, by the way, these are two different functions. So I'm showing, here's this Fibonacci. This is simple Fibonacci sequence. And if you wanna see, actually, let me just run this real quick, so you know what I'm talking about. Open Review Finder. Alright, let's run this. Look at that. So this thing came up, and it was fast. Look at that one. Taking forever, for a Fibonacci of 40, by the way. I didn't do anything rocket science here. Because I don't really know rocket science, for that reason I didn't do it. But check this out. This is Fibonacci recursive. I'm gonna run it, right? Alright, 1, 2, 3. Look at that. It goes on for a few seconds, couple of seconds at least, and then it said okay. Do it again. You see that? You can see the whole thing, the circle go. Interesting. And check this out. This is the optimized version. Right there, because it's getting called 39 times. By the way, the answer is the same on both the cases. This is called 39 times. And the first one is the answer, right? So you get the answer is the same. But it's called, how many times? Oh my gosh, 331 million times, that same function. Why? Because someone thought it was a good idea to do recursion in case of Fibonacci. And what do? Very simple optimized situation where I was like, hey, look, if you already got the value, then put it inside this array, and then don't do it. That's all we're doing, right? And look at this guy. Oh, that was the one. So here's the array. Now this is a little more complicated, but this is the answer, right? What we're doing is, we've got this array. And anytime we got the value for that particular number, let's say we got Fibonacci of 26 for that matter, now it's in the array. If it's in the array, we're not gonna do the entire recursive sequence. That's all we're doing. That's a simple check right there, and that makes a big amount of difference. Look at this. This was taking, I still remember this number because it's so critical for us. This function was called 1,600 times over a sales cycle of about 50 minutes. It would take like 15 minutes to do the sale. 850 milliseconds every single time this function runs. And we brought it down to 1 millisecond. Now look at this, what they're doing. Can anyone tell me what's the really bad thing about this thing? Awful thing about what they're doing here? This is it. This is the function. That's it.
Why are they checking to see if it's an object?
After this, I promise we'll go back to TypeScript. I get too excited about this kind of stuff.
Why are they checking to see if it is an object?
Yeah, very good point. They don't need to because
Right.
Angular actually understands JSON as it is. It's like a step that I don't even understand why they did in the first place. Very good. What else? There's one big thing you're also missing. It's coming. There's not enough code to go wrong here.
Then you mentioned in and off, right?
Huh?
So that's an index, the item is an index.
Oh yeah, don't worry about that because that's a regular for loop, so this is okay. It's not the for loop that I showed you. That one's a ECMAScript for loop. This is
Yeah,
JavaScript for loop.
yeah.
So this will work.
That one's
Oh,
right.
nice.
Yeah.
Got a lot of screens in here.
Well, there's something really big here.
You're making an element span, I think, for
And why are they doing
Text.
text on that?
Honestly, it took me 4 hours to find what was the bottleneck. And it took me 30 seconds to solve the problem. Because the moment I did this, I'm like, holy shit. Pardon my French.
oh my.
That's a decode right there, and what they're doing is a recursion. It's all recursion right there. That's why you have to have the best tools, because if you're doing this on Visual Studio at that time, you would have never seen this. You always gotta have your own tools. I pay for my tools all the time, so I got my licensed version of WebStorm running over there. The moment I double click that thing, luckily I saw this, or it might have taken me another couple of hours to find this. But it took me 4 hours to find out where the bottlenecks are. Seriously? And then you go fix it in 30 seconds. But this code is running for years. I mean, that's the whole reason the app was dead. And then you know what they'll tell you? The UI is easy. It's the server that slows down. And of course, we have to do server-side performance too. You have to figure out a lot of these kind of things. And by the way, I pitched that client a 2-day training, literally a 2-day training before they wanted to start. And later they're paying me $3 million. I have no harm in becoming a millionaire because of these people who want to pay me more. I don't care. It feels bad in one way. I'd rather not be a millionaire than teach you the right things.
So you could have taught their team not to write this stuff.
Huh?
You could have taught their team how to write this, not to write this stuff.
Totally.
How to fix it.
And by the way, this is the right way to do the for each. So I'm just showing you another way to do it. If you do it with .every, and then you did n not equals to 3, and let's say your second item was n, which is 3, or whatever, not equal to 3, you would be back, you would be out. So that's just one example. So anyways, I can go on and on about this code, but there's really not much to keep in here. All of it was like completely worthless, to say it nicely. And when I say something is horrible, I mean it. So, another thing is, you probably know what a const is. So that's easy actually. If we want to get into a const, actually let me just give you an example of a const that you may not have thought of, because things are still tricky. Our model, what is it? F1 or whatever. So this is a const. Should I do something like this? Could I do this? No, right? Because it's a const. But I could do this, you know that? It's doable. It's legal syntax. And then you probably know what any is. Any could be anything. So I could go and say 1, 2, 3, and then the next thing I could do is product equals to hello, and it'll be fine. But yeah, line number 5, by the way, just remember that, because we learn things the hard way. We write code and then someone comes and makes a big change, and we're like, whoa.
Can one, on line 5, put one, change the name, like ID, like to AB or whatever? Like instead of just the value of ID, but the.
Well, in that case, I'm assuming there's already a class creator or not, but there's no way you would be able to change it if you didn't have to have the class. You're gonna have to go change the class, or you're gonna have to create an, a derived class.
It should say
If
AB is
you
not,
Huh?
AB is not declared, right?
What is it?
If you try to say product.ab equals 5, it's gonna say AB is not declared.
It's not to say that? Sorry, trying to understand.
She was asking if you could change the ID property to the name of like AB.
Yes.
So if you said product.ab equals something, it's gonna tell you that AB is not declared.
Yeah, it's not declared because it's not part of, right? So that's what I'm saying, like right now, this is just an example where I just instantiated the object, but generally speaking, I have a class. You're gonna have to change the property in the class, right? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I've never seen before that one can change a constant, but you showed that you proved that one can.
Yeah, so the way the const works in case of object is you can't change the entire object, but you can change every single property. That's how it works. Which I think is okay, because you wanna be able to change the properties in an object, right? Like, why would you wanna create a const object? Yeah, I mean, you could, like for example, I would do it if I don't want anyone to change the port. I want anyone, in my build to just go to the same port, but then I wanna come and change the port. It's like my configuration object. Here's my configuration object, no one touches, no one changes it, no one's adding anything or making any change to the structure of my object. However, if they wanna create a change of port in the development machine to 4300, I don't care. You know what I mean? Just saying, there are different reasons you wanna do it, except this is just an anomaly, right? A lot of people will come and tell you what a const is, you can't change it. What I wanna tell you is what's possible with it.
You can't change its type though, like if you make it product.id equals a string of 203, it yells at you.
Yeah, it'll latch onto that type now, because
Yeah.
you already declared it.
That was magic.
It's magic?
Yeah, changing the constant, that was magic.
The inside,
Well, that's JavaScript.
you couldn't
Yeah.
assign something.
That's what we're hackers, that's what we do.
Side effect of JavaScript.
So look at that. Void is not assignable to string. So here's another thing that people don't do that I want them to do is make sure to put a void over there.
Yeah.
Because you really need to make sure if something is not returning anything, then you have something like make sure it doesn't return anything.
Good reason to do that.
I mean, we do that in C# always, but the problem with TypeScript is that it allows you to get away with it. In C# you're gonna have to specify what the return type is. But But I think TypeScript is also trying to take care of whatever JavaScript offers you, and they didn't want to piss off the JavaScript aficionados that don't know how to write good code. You wanna know how bad code out there is?
Used to.
IE 11 was launched, and this is not me saying it. Douglas Crockford, the father of JavaScript, made a statement that it's 4 times faster than the then version of Chrome. 4 times faster on good JavaScript code. But overall, Chrome ends up being faster because 85% of the code out there is bad JavaScript code. And it optimizes bad JavaScript code. That's what Chrome was doing. At the expense of a battery, and then of course your information.
Much more than Chromebook.
Oh yeah, then go on Chromebook. But see, that company, the problem with Google is that there's a lot of good people, but the company has to survive on one thing, which is information. What can they really do? And then we found out that even Apple, Facebook, Microsoft employees, including contractors all over the world, have been listening to your Skype, Messenger, as well as other Alexa conversations and everything. So what's the difference between the companies? Not much.
South Park's people are naive enough to think it was never happening in the first place.
I like that.
Just,
But they're saying that, data now is more valuable than oil.
oh, yeah,
Well,
that's been that way for at least 5 years.
people who want data to be valuable would say that.
Yep. But see, the problem is we're a little too technical.
2016.
The problem, you know, our biggest problem is we think everyone is technical.
Sure.
So, and you have a lot of non-technical friends and family, as you know, right? I got this BBC reporter, no kidding, BBC reporter in 2011 goes, Macs don't get viruses and Windows get viruses, but you know why, right? Like, why do they get viruses? Because you download something. When was the last time we downloaded anything in his British accent? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. You take away food from me on a day, I am okay with you. You take away downloads for a day, I'll probably kill you. That's where we live, right? We live in a different world. We live in our bubble where like we always knew all this was happening, but you talk to people out there, they're like, no. Like one person really got mad at me that I didn't know how to fix their Facebook. It's like, I thought you got all these awards from Microsoft and Google, you don't know how to fix your Facebook? I'm like, so,
You didn't get an award from
does
Facebook.
every technical guy have to fix your iPad? What do you think of technical people, you know what I mean?
What's the problem with Facebook?
Non-technical people go around saying, this guy's a master's degree, doesn't know how to fix my Facebook account. Which I decided to give some apps some rights that he was not aware of, and he doesn't have the time to do it. I'm like, I'll just Google it. You have to Google it? I should be knowing everything, isn't it? As a consultant, it's even worse. Every client you go to wants you to understand every single thing about their business. Now I know a lot of different domains, trust me. But first you'll walk into a company and they're like, oh yeah, we were working with NPCs and NDCs. You have any idea? Yeah, it's really messed up. I'm like, what's an NPC? You gotta be kidding me. You don't know what a national product code is? I'm like, you really think I know anything about health or healthcare? I was the skinniest guy in my hometown because I didn't have money to eat food. I was skinny, I was sick. They deported me to the United States, like, oh, he's gonna, spread some epidemic here. That's what they did. That's how I ended up here. How would I know anything about your, greatness, whatever, company you're part of? And the other thing is, we walk in and the first thing we have to do is make sure that we tell the tech guys what we make or what we drive. Seriously, now I have to do that. By the way, I drive an Aston Martin. Your VP's salary is $200K. I have no interest to take your job or his job. I'm not here to kill you or destroy your career. And here's a list of people who went from being a developer to a VP or an architect because of what we did for them. And we're not here to make sure you look like an idiot or we're smarter than you. Let's just be clear, we're only here to support you. The guy still doesn't get it.
No.
It's usually the first top 2 guys that'll never get it. And 6 months later, they're your fans and they're going to parties with you and they're like, oh my gosh, why did I not get you earlier? This is the first time I've doubled my bonus. This is the first time I made a 50 grand salary. Before that, they all want to kill you. Because they think that you're some kind of alien, which I am, by the way. When I got to the United States, they gave me an alien number. I didn't know I was an alien. And I'm okay with being an alien. But I'm not there to take your job, dude. I'm not. I would have taken them long back. But then, we have these parties, Democrats want you to know that that's happening to you, that your job's going to be taken by Indians without an accent. And then it's interesting that Republicans get all the blame, but Democrats use the word race more than anyone else. that I've ever heard of. So it's like both are really evil. Seriously, there are no good politicians out there. But the problem with the kid for us is people like me, you know, someone's gonna come shoot me tomorrow. And I'm not even kidding, you think it's a joke? You don't realize, right? Like 8 Indians died in 2008. And not a single newspaper ever covered it. How come only Indian newspapers in India were covering that? One every month. From IT, from Andhra Pradesh. And I have no idea if I walk out tomorrow and there's a crazy guy sitting over there, he's taking my job and he shoots me. That's why on a daily basis, I get up in the morning, I meditate for 30 minutes, tell myself one thing. I don't know if I'm gonna live today or my kids are gonna live today, because this is the country that can't protect me or my kids, but it's great at everything else, right? But if I were to die today, I wanna do the things that I like to do. Every morning, 30 minutes meditation, that's all I tell myself. That's why I'm able to contribute. Because I don't think I'm gonna live that long. Because my family, no one lived more than 65 till today, just so you know. So in either case, I'm gonna die by 65. That's not a lot of years left. I'm 38 already.
You're here now, you got plenty more time.
Huh?
You're here now, you have plenty more time.
What does that mean?
That means you're in America. You
Look,
live
I
longer.
can't change the skin color, you know, and not everyone is as intelligent, educated, and enlightened as a lot of IT folks that we work with. We live in a bubble.
Go get
At
you a
least half
personal
the
trainer.
people in the world are below average intelligence.
It doesn't matter. The gun doesn't look at your intelligence level.
Strange sort of way of mind.
I mean, seriously, when people come and tell me that they have a right to keep a gun, and their right is more important than their kids, my simple 2-word answer for them is F you. If your right is more important than your kids, well, you really have a serious mental issue, because not everyone is like you who knows how to handle his guns. The same way they don't know how to handle their finances. The same way they don't understand how much debt our country has. They just don't get it. And it's just some kind of politician telling you to behave like that, and you act on it. You know that sugar is more, worse than cocaine when it comes to addiction. And they feed your kids since childhood that sugar. And that's enough to make your kids rebel against you, and you don't realize that. And I don't either until I saw the documentary, you know. So now my kids don't get a sugar high. They're starving in Alabama. Okay, that was a joke, okay? Don't tell anyone CPS is gonna come
Put your
for me.
kids in Alabama. That's childish.
Anyway, so you got something like this, right? And let's say I wanna change this to a number. But you know, most of the people I talk to are libertarians, honestly, and
That's weird.
you know, that's basically most of America that I knew of. But when the elections happen, libertarians have no value, because Democrats will do the worst thing ever to keep a Bernie Sanders democratically unelected. I'm not a fan of Bernie, but I wanted to explain why Democrat process sucks, because if they're so democratic, why would they do that to Bernie in the first place?
First he wasn't
And
a Democrat.
maybe Bernie might have a chance to, you know, defeat Trump, maybe. But I don't think anyone had a chance to defeat Trump, because people were so mad at politicians. They said anyone but politicians. Seriously. And honestly, you gotta look at this in a different way. Trump was the best idiot we could ever have had as a president, because Obama, as well as Bush, did not go after China. You needed an idiot who doesn't know what he's doing, and has smart people behind him telling him, go fight a war with China, go do all these weird things. And what has that done for the world? It's done a lot of great things for a lot of other countries that are really pissed at China, including my Chinese friends, who left China because the worst authoritarian country out there. So Trump's presidency might not have given you anything but one thing, one good thing. The rest, he's an idiot. I mean, of course, I don't like him. I think he is definitely as unpresidential as it gets. But give him credit for what he did.
So you don't want him to buy Greenland?
By the way, Greenland is not green, just to be clear. I don't know what they're buying. Now, if Trump is buying that thinking it's green, I mean, you know, go for it.
Nothing green about green.
But did anyone see that? What I've put in front of that is a string. So you see string? We're doing casting, which is very like C#. You could do this, or you could do that. As string, which is, I like both the syntaxes, but it makes sense. And we can do more. Let's see. So you probably already know about this. This is easy. So can anyone tell me why this is squiggly under tax? Cost cost, question mark means optional, that is an optional parameter.
It's gotta be at the end.
Just consumption stuff.
Ah.
Yeah.
Very good. Same as C#, if you have questions, we'll take the questions at the end.
Mhm.
You got the joke?
Yeah.
Means if you have any optional parameters, leave it towards the end, that's it. Otherwise, it's all good.
Makes sense.
Now, you could have done something like this in a different way. So you see this? Actually, let me just do another one. I'm gonna call it price, just so the name is different. So you know lambdas, right?
Mhm.
So you could do the lambda syntax. Like this. And I can show it to you in two different ways. You could do that, that's the shorter way, but you could also do it this way. So now you kind of have this function which hasn't been really declared. So I'm gonna declare this function and say, alright, I'm gonna take the cost, all these things, and I can return something like cost plus tax. So this is cool, but I just want to show you could do it in a different way too. See, now this gets really complicated, but I wanted to show you, check out line number 10. What am I doing? I'm actually just declaring my lambda, saying, hey, here's this kind of an interface that I'm gonna use like a delegate, and I want that delegate to stay true, or my contract to stay true whenever I create that function. And then line number 15, I'm doing everything in one line. So this way, I declared the lambda, and then anywhere in my code, I could just use that same name, and now create a function, and execute it in a completely different place. But line number 15, I'm doing everything in one line. Now where do I do this? Unit testing, I would do the bottom one, because I want everything to be in front of your eyes, and it's not about reuse as much as it's about making it legible, and it should be right in front of my eyes. When it's production code, I use the one on top because I want, separation of concerns, and I want reusability. That's a big deal for me at that time.
Would it give you a squiggly if you returned a string?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Because I'm specifying what I'm
Just
returning
number.
right there.
I don't know JavaScript, so I'm just.
Well, with JavaScript, it's not gonna give you anything. You can literally have a function with 2 parameters and you can pass it 16, it doesn't care.
And then
You can have a function with no parameters, you can pass it anything.
you can
No.
return whatever.
Like I said, the guy wanted to make sure that you feel like idiots. That was his intent. By the way, British English and Indian English, idiot is used very often, it doesn't mean anything bad. So when you go home, if anyone of you have victim mentality, don't put it on your meetup. It's just British English. That's another thing they want us to have. They want us to feel bad about ourselves. Like when I came to this country, I was like, I can't understand these people. They're failing projects or projects. The first project I did was Tech Trans in South Lake, Dallas. Turns out these people spent $16 million for 4 years with 2 different consulting companies, and they could not finish a simple shipment module. That entire company, $65 million in revenue, only 140 employees. They make so much money, but they could not automate their shipments. It's like, hey, you take a machine from us, $2 million. All right, I got it. Write it in an Excel file. I'm gonna send it to someone else in an email. That guy has an Excel file. I'm like, really? At any given point of time, you don't know where a shipment is? I do that project in 8 months, single-handedly, all by myself. And I had a hard time understanding why people can't do things fast, right? I never understood in the first place, it's all driven by, increase in the headcount and not delivering whatever. And I also personally started thinking that maybe it is that they really don't want to give business to anyone of color. You know why, right? Because I was reading the same newspapers you read. And I'm thinking, maybe they don't want to give business to me because I have a different color. It's very easy to get that mentality in yourself. Just because you start correlating things that are not true, not clear, but unless they divide you, they can't get your votes. They just can't. So they're gonna have to come up with 10 different issues that you care about, and 10 different issues that other person comes about. And if you wanna check out the Great Hack, the Great Hack tells you how Cambridge Analytica did all of that. They just used the data points on you, based on your likes on Facebook, and they fooled you. And the election was behind you, but who cares? Even if Hillary won or Trump won, you had 2 bad options. every politician that will ever win that election is gonna be a bad option, because you'll never be able to do what we expect that person to do. We expect a lot out of the president, which I don't think has that much power in the first place. Like, there's no way these people can do to the economy what we think they can do. They can mess it up though. I mean, they can't make it better, right? So destructuring, by the way, I can also show you an example of destructuring functions. Let's see. And by the way, I'm a fan of George Carlin, and not the fan of his political views or anything like that. I'm a fan of his delivery, and his delivery is made to make you think. It's not as much as he believes that way as it's making sure that you think about those things. So one thing I learned from him was, if you want other people to think something and make it a joke, exaggerate it. So a lot of what I'm saying is an exaggeration. So don't think that's coming out of me because that's what I believe in. A lot of it is made to make you think, and it's basically exaggeration because that's what makes a joke in the first place. But if you were to think about it in a different way, why do you think all the developers end up going to recruiters? Recruiters pay for all these events, right? We've been running a conference for 10 years. We lose money almost every second year. And when we make money, we don't make it enough to even pay for any of the people that we have. But one thing was very clear, we're never gonna take recruiters' money. Why is that? They buy you one free pizza, they get in your meetup, they make friends with you, they go to you and they say, you have five positions? All right, I got Jeff, he's looking for a job, and now they make $50 an hour off of you. Where's that coming out of? Your own paychecks. You know, when I was in this country making $68,000 a year, I was having a baby and I needed money for the baby. I got a $2 million a year contract after doing that project that I just talked about. His revenue was only $500,000, my employer's revenue, had only 3 people working for him. The first thing he says is, there's no way you deserve a $15 an hour raise. I'm like, I'm not asking for a raise because I want it. I just don't have the money to pay for the kid that's on the way. So, no hard feelings, I'm gonna have to leave. Here's a 2-week notice. And 2 weeks notice, my plan was to go back to India. Luckily, 2 weeks later, exact 2 weeks later, the day I walked out, I was told I got my green card, and that's how I started my business. And what happened 2 years from that time? $250K. He was selling his business for $250K. He thought he could get any guy out of UTD with a master's degree and do what I did. And he tried, but he still lost the project, right? Short-term thinking. That's when I decided to talk about salaries. No employer talks about that. They discourage you to talk about salaries. Till today, I'm running businesses. It's my 4th multi-million-dollar business in tech, and I do a lot of non-tech businesses, but I talk about salaries all the time. That's the whole point of getting you in a meetup, to talk about these things. Because you don't talk about it. You talk to the recruiter, and what is he doing? The recruiter gets paid so less that for him to reduce $5 an hour on you will probably make 50 cents an hour for him, which is about $1,000 extra a year, and he's trying to make it work for himself. Because the corporation is keeping most of it. Isn't that crazy? And this whole chain is made to make sure that you never get the salary you deserve. That's it. And what we're trying to do is fight it. Ritesh Mehta out of Dell, when he brought us in, he didn't really bring us in, someone else brought us in. He started helping us with a lot of business kind of stuff which we didn't know. Interestingly, we told Steve Brown, who's one of the biggest VPs out there now, at that time he was just the director. We told Steve, look, we just saved you around $45 million, but we also saved you 3 years. Do you realize the biggest impact was made by the guy who you don't think is smart enough? Not you, your team. And Steve's a great guy. I said he enabled us to know enough about the domain faster than anyone else that we were successful because of this guy. 3 years later, the guy who was making $104K, by the way, he started at $75K. In 9 years at Dell, he was making $104K salary. We fought for his salary so much that right now he makes $210K. In 3 years, we doubled the salary. Because our goal was simple. If you're gonna champion your company, we're gonna champion you. We're gonna fight the battles for you because you can't. I went to Steve and said, what is the highest salary you can pay a director? Ritesh was a developer when we met him. We made him an architect. When he goes from a developer to an architect, he got $126K salary. Then he goes from an architect to a manager 3 months later, because that was a new year. We shot in October. We're talking April. Now he gets to a manager at $139K salary. Then 1 year we were out of Dell because we finished the project, we moved on. We come back, he's only making $141K salary. Now I went to Steve and said, look, we've made you so successful because of him. What is the highest you can pay a director? I want him to be a director. $170K salary. That was a year ago, that was the highest any director in Dell would ever get paid, with a 25% bonus, not a 15% bonus. That makes his salary around 210K. And the company now pays for his MBA. Look, the money's there. It's just not getting in your pockets. You deserve it more than anyone else because the sales guys are not making that company any better. You don't deliver, sales die. I have 0 sales people in my company because we have delivered. But see, it's not the recruiters making that company any better. It's the tech guys. And somehow they're putting you all in the same bucket as everyone else. Well then how come Zuckerberg made the billions? I mean, how come everyone else made the billions? It makes no sense, right? Somewhere there the math is flawed, it's not in the favor of people who are making it work, because most of you can't start your own businesses. There's a reason behind it. We can get into tons of those, including the reasons I could not have been successful in the beginning was because they asked me for really stupid things. When I was starting my first company, they're like, I need you to be in business for 5 years. Wait, we just started the company, we can't be in business for 5 years. Okay, we want you to have 10 million in revenue, you can't work with us. Like, you gotta be kidding me. You're willing to lose 50 million with a company that's not delivering for the last 20 years, and you want us to have that much revenue, and that's hard, it's extremely hard, you know? And then there are regular people that don't pay you. You work with startups, and they don't pay you. I lost $600,000 in Austin, helping startups that literally told me that they have funding coming, they never came, and they actually filed bankruptcies. They do that all the time, so there's bad people on all sorts of the chain, and it's not easy to survive. That's why I got lucky. I just simply say I got lucky. You got some good people that took care of a lot of the bad people. But that doesn't happen always. That's the reason most people don't want to get into jobs or businesses. They don't want to leave their jobs for businesses. But in the whole scheme of things, it's made in a way to really keep you middle class. Because if you were not middle class, why would you work?
It's actually less than middle class nowadays.
And trust me, you know, I can go on and on about it, but
Think so?
my family's seen money and it's gone away from them too. You know, it's like when my grandfather was the richest person in the entire province of Punjab, which is the most prosperous thing in India. What happened next? Pakistan-India war, thanks to the British. And he lost every single thing. You had ships and everything, he lost. He had to go to India. He went back to zero. He taught my dad only one thing. It's like, hey, look, money will go away. But if you do the right thing with people, that doesn't go away. Your investment should be in people, not in money. That was the biggest lesson anyone can ever teach you. I mean, basically the point is don't care about money. So, after making 10 million at the age of 18, next 7 years, I did a lot of philanthropy, lost a lot of money. Eventually, I lost so much money that I had to survive on $30 a month, and I did a good job doing that. I had to take money from my dad to come in here. Money comes and goes away. It's just interesting how people think that there is a rich and a poor, but of course there's this filthy rich, that's 1%. I'm not talking about that. But everyone else keeps moving around. There's a chain that simply moves around. What did I do wrong here? Can anyone see what I did wrong? There's some kind of syntax error going on.
For a second,
Oops, sorry. That's what I did. Alright, can anyone tell me what it's gonna be? What's the result of this? So really what I'm doing is, I don't know after 2 how many other elements are gonna come in. And whatever elements come in, I just want them to be joined with a comma and the result needs to come out. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So West wasn't a string array before you put that in?
So it's basically like a param.
Parameter.
Yeah, param.
So now that's an array, right? So it's a string array.
Do you have to give it a string array, or can you just give it a bunch of variables and it would?
I mean, you can do anything. Why is that complaining now? See, some of it is resharper or not resharper. This thing trying to help me. So it actually puts extra stuff. It's not a assignable to type string. I thought the third one was string array. So what did I do wrong here?
You can do a console.log of, string array?
Yeah, that should work though. Let's stop at the bug. The rest didn't work. Oh, because it's outside the function. That's fine. That worked, so that's fine. So what did I do? Comma, first comma, second comma. Display. That should work. Let's see. It worked. So I don't know why it's giving an error, but it worked. That's cool, you see? That's called confidence.
It's called JavaScript.
Well, this is TypeScript, so I don't know what happened here. Now, does anyone know the problem with this inside objects? It's awful. You literally can start with a lot of this problems, but let me show you a simple example. I don't know if this is a good example. Oh, by the way, we haven't even done classes. Let's do some cool stuff.
You were talking earlier about using var to take advantage of hoisting.
Or not using var.
No, you were talking about,
Yeah, no, I remember that.
you know, usually you don't wanna use var, but you might want to at some point to take advantage of hoisting for some particular reason.
Totally.
I'm just wondering what kind of thought process you go through to,
Well, hoisting is a bad
Put that
example,
into
right?
your
So
design.
var has a lot of benefits, right? So especially when you're doing nesting and all that kind of stuff, there are times when you would want that power to come to you. Because JavaScript is a language that is really cool in one way because you can even, so it's like, think about this, right? An object that was not even created could be referenced before it's even created. The only language that provides you that is JavaScript, and very close to that would be something like a Python. Now, when you have a situation like that, that's when you need to use a var. You can't do it with a let.
yeah.
That's it. So that's my favorite use case. And it makes a lot of sense because I want to send out a function to another function and get something back. I'm using the power of it, and you want to use it everything dynamic, especially when I'm getting stuff out of an API. It makes a lot of difference. It makes my life so much easier with that. Good question though. You want a resharper?
Sure.
What's your name?
Edward Evans.
Send me an email.
Okay.
Get you a free resharper. That's a very good question. At least someone was paying attention to the non-political stuff.
Well, did you talk about political stuff?
But I really don't talk about political stuff. I talk about stuff that I see happening that is dividing everyone, right? Like my friend from China is like, China's such a great country and such great people that it sucks that we have a totalitarian guy like Xi. And he still says the same thing like, hey, we have everything in America. Why are we fighting each other? Things that are so normal and minimal and stuff like that, And he has a good perspective. He's like, I've seen such bad stuff over there that we have so many good things here to be proud of and feel good about. And we're fighting about things that aren't even important. Like how important is Donald Trump? We've just made him very important. How important is Hillary Clinton for that matter? I mean, they're not saints. They're not there to do great things for us. They're there to do great things for themselves. And we know that these two parties have taken away the democratic process. And you can't do much about it. But let's not fight your own friends just because they tend to support, a certain party. Like, Republicans' point of view is that Democrats, their Democrat friends, just want more debt, which will eventually create World War, which I don't disagree with. They have the right to think that way. But most Democrats are Democrats because they believe in equality and a lot of other things. Now, if you look at the Democrats' point of Republicans, it's like, well, they're all racist. Well, not true. I think this is one of the least racist countries in the world. If you're white and you want to start a business in India, I don't know how successful you will be, but as a brown guy, I am successful in America. I've seen it firsthand. People in India love white people, but I don't think they'll give you the same business that they give the Indians. It just hasn't worked out really well, right? How many white people have done that? Very few, unless you're a big multinational company. So there's goodness in this culture, and Republicans, just because they're more conservative and they're worried about, finances, and they don't want to triple the debt like whatever happened in the past, you can't think of all of them as racist. The whole country, the reason this country survives is because 70% of the people are white, and most of them are actually not racist. Now, wherever you have these one or two, hundreds or 200 people going and doing a white supremacist rally or whatever, those are just exceptions. There are very few people. Why give them too much attention? The more attention you give them, more you create. And these kids, what is going on in their head? They've been told since childhood that everyone has rights, but they don't. I left India because I was a white of India. They kept saying, my caste. What does that mean? Just because my ancestors were kings at one point in time? Does that mean I should be treated unfairly? Now 70% of India gets a reservation, I don't. So I got the #1 job in India and I left it because I didn't need that job. I could have gone to another country like the United States, and today what am I doing? I'm growing this country. Why did my Chinese friends leave China? Because they got sick and fed up of this totalitarian organization that would just not let them do good normal things. They left that country for that reason. Everyone is leaving the world, coming here because they're sick and tired of their politics. Now we're creating reasons to be apolitical. You see, and you can't do this to the white people. Is a white kid growing up, he has to be very, very careful what he says. And others don't. Just because maybe at some point of time, 30, 50, 60 years ago, something bad might have happened. What does that have to do with him? It's like me going and saying, I'm gonna bomb Britain because they actually, 100 years, they screwed Indians of $45 trillion. You see, so I think both point of views are fine, but it's not as bad that you wanna fight each other. Because fighting each other is only helping the Russias and the Chinas of the world. And I'm not saying Russia and the Chinese people, it's the governments. And do you really want China government to lead the world? If Chinese can't handle it, I can't. Simple as that, Would you want Saudi Arabia to lead the world? No, right? I mean, they're great at what they do, but they just can't lead the world. Let's put it that way, right? They just
What is it they do?
great at what they do. Well, see, here's what I don't like. That was a joke. That was a sarcastic remark.
Sorry.
If they are great at what they do and they believe they are, but honestly, I don't want to be led by them. I don't want to be led by Chinese government. I don't want to be led by Putin. You really want Putin to be my president? Hell no. So stop fighting, right? Otherwise, one day he will be my president. That's what I don't want. But I will rather take Donald Trump over Putin. Let's put it that way, because Trump doesn't have any power. Huh?
Even though Trump basically answers to Putin?
Trump doesn't have any power.
Actually, well, not, I think technically he does.
Well, let's put it this way, that
I mean, just because he's not smart enough to use it.
I think it's the
doesn't
checks
mean-
and balances of our economy that make Trump powerless, compared to a Putin who would just come in and do anything he wants to do, right? Or a Xi, for that matter.
Well, I mean, we have a system of government put in place that makes it difficult for somebody like Xi or Putin to come in and do that, and so, alternatively, an option to, if you wanted to, do damage would be to put somebody in charge that had the capability to do damage to that system. So,
Oh, totally.
and that's why you got Trump there.
But you see the way the Chinese billionaires are leaving China now, and all the good stuff is happening. In the past, Putin went and literally took down the billionaires. We just saw a billionaire die in jail who was going after the powerful people. So there are powerful people who have power, right? Epstein definitely didn't have a suicide. We all know that.
Well, I mean, come on, those cards could have fallen asleep, right?
Huh? Right, so,
On the video switch, right?
the point is, what length are you trying to go to undermine the democracy? And that happens here, but it's comparatively less than other countries. Of course, I don't want it to be this way, but, what can you do? You can't fix this.
Sure you can.
How?
You vote him out.
Vote who out? And bring who?
I mean,
You're gonna replace, all you can do is get a lesser devil, that's it.
sure, and at this point, I would take that, right?
Oh, that's
I mean,
perfectly
just
okay.
because like our country here, I mean, in order to prevent people from basically breaking the system later, I mean, it requires systemic change,
Well, but the systemic change is not the Democrats either. I think the systemic change is what the people of this country want, which is
That's
libertarians.
progressive people.
You want libertarians.
Who love the ingrained Democrats.
Totally, because some Democrats are talking like socialism. Now that doesn't work. That didn't work for USSR. That didn't work for India. That didn't
They're
work
not
for
talking
China.
socialism, I mean, they're talking, public, universal healthcare.
I can totally debate that because I don't vote.
Right, yeah, I'm
So
just
I
saying,
hate
like, the
both of
only
them.
country in the United
And by the
States that
way,
doesn't
I
have
don't hate
it.
anyone. I just dislike them. Let's be clear. I do think when Democrats say that they have a plan to put $6 trillion in healthcare and education, here's my question. Is that money going to Americans? No. That $6 trillion is not going to Americans. That $6 trillion is going to these universities. And look at the endowments they have. Why can't you come up with a simple rule saying, if you have more than an X amount of endowments, 100 million, let's say, Harvard has 2 billion, Texas A&M is one of the top 10 in the country in terms of endowments, right?
40 billion.
Yeah, they just spent 300 million on a Deloitte project and failed, literally just now, right? So when you have this much money, why not give that money to Americans? Why are you giving that money to these institutions? That's bad. So Democrats don't have a plan either, and no one can answer that question. So I think there's
Yeah,
just
as
a
far
bunch
as
of
healthcare
dumb
goes, I think
people
there's
that
plans.
are in politics, and a lot of smart folks are sitting in this room, and we don't have the power.
Maybe we should get back to repository tea.
Yeah, let's do that. But see, honestly, I just can't vote. I just can't. Because either way, I'm doing the wrong thing, and that's it. Seriously. I like Obama, but let me tell you this. He weakened this country more than anyone else. So I'm not in favor of Bush, not in favor of Trump, not in favor of Obama. He gave $10 billion a year to Pakistan. Explain that to me. While he is taking away money from a lot of important things, including my friends who did not get loans after 2008. Right? So when people all of a sudden want to make Obama like a god, I'm like, he was a piece of thanks for filling the rest of the planet. He went from 1.9 million as his own income to 50 million right after his presidency. 1.9 to 50 million is 25 times. And for that 25 times, how much debt he ended up creating for this country? And paying for things that he should have never paid for. And he never made any of the NATO people pay for a lot of those things either. He created allies by giving them money, taking away from the Americans. While, if you notice, pre-2008, the lower 30% of this country has still not been able to come back to pre-2008 levels. The lower 30% of this country. The next 40% of this country has barely made it, but they are almost to that level. And if you look at the top 10%, they've actually grown way beyond that level in the biggest bull market we've ever had, thanks to Obama. But no one's going to tell you that, because a lot of people look at this as, he was so much better than Trump. I don't care. You were in the place, you had the power, you had the numbers, you could have done every single thing. You never did. You just didn't.
He had the power for 2 years, not 8 years.
Well, 2 years is a lot of time.
It's really not.
2 years got us the affordable haircut,
Yeah,
affordable care.
Affordable Care Act, you're right.
Well, look, he had the
Yes,
power,
yes,
if he had the power to give away hundreds of billions of dollars, he could have chosen to give that to Americans, right? Here's my question. How come Obama, as well as Trump, they both decided to let go of people with STEM, education in this country? People like me coming into paying $60,000 to $100,000 for their education that we spend, and we come over here, and he decided to let go of the legal immigrants, my friends, with H-1B visas, were actually thrown back from the border countries. No one makes a shit about it because media is all Democrat, right? Now, Obama, for the first thing, let me tell you stories about my friends. After 2008, for the first time in the history of India created multi-billion-dollar startups. 3 of them are created by my friends. One of them was sent back by Obama in 2008 when he's the owner of Flipkart, by the way. He sold it to Walmart for $16 billion, just so you know. He was sent back, he's working for Amazon, his visa was valid, it was legal, and it was strict instructions told to them that send back every single H-1B guy who goes back over there. For 4.5 years, I didn't go to India. Because if I went back outside, I would not be brought back in. You weaken the country by taking the smartest people away. India, the big reason it has never been successful is because till the last 10 years, they never held on to their talent. Last 10 years, they started getting the talent back because they were forced to go back. 40,000 Indians went back in 2008. 40,000 Indians. Smartest and the smartest of people working for IBM, Microsoft, and all of those. Those people created for the first time in the history of India multi-billion-dollar startups. Why did it not happen before that? But your news will never cover that. Because Americans don't read international newspaper. Here's what I read. I read Australian newspaper. I read the Chinese newspaper. It's actually available in English. You can translate it if you want to, but actually there's an English version of Chinese people newspaper that's actually available. I read that. I read Japanese news. I also read sometimes the South African news, and sometimes I'll use the German and the English news too. which by the way, BBC is interestingly another way out of the league, liar, spreading of lies, kind of another interesting thing altogether. Like the Kashmir issue, they never start with facts. They never started with facts, interestingly. Like they're on the same lines with Al Jazeera when it comes to a Kashmir issue. They didn't start with facts. You know, they'll tell you all sorts of things like, for example, do you know that an F-16 was bombed in Kashmir? This year. In the history of United States, F-16 has never been bombed and brought down to the ground, except in Pakistan. This year, CNBC didn't cover it. They specifically removed that part. I read CNBC completely. They actually said that they shot the Indian MiG, but they never covered the fact that the Indians actually got the F-16, and they also proved it to the United States that this is what happened. They were using an F-16 while they were not supposed to. How did they get the F-16 in the first place? They don't have money to run that country for 2 years. That's it. 6 years ago, there was a time when they didn't have money to run Pakistan for 2 months. Obama paid all that money. All the money that we pay now goes to these terrorists that actually go to Afghanistan and fight against the US Army, killing our people. But it doesn't matter to people here because, oh, someone else died. It's not part of my family. Who cares? Well, look at those army people. They're losing their lives because someone here decided to give tens of billions of dollars to Pakistan. Indian intelligence said long back that Osama bin Laden is in the same city as the army and it's shielded by the Pakistani army. What happened later? You find him 4 miles from army base. How come the Indian intelligence has been telling this for more than a decade and never want to listen? The Democrats bring a vision of this press that is so created in a way that satisfies everything you want. You know, let me ask about gay rights. What's the percentage of gays in America? Don't you think that a court could simply rule gay rights? Do you really need the politicians to talk about it? The reason you talk about gay rights is because you want to create another division that goes in your favor, and that's another few percent of votes. That's what these people do. Now you have LGBT, you know, but Biden has not been talking about LGBTQ. Why do you not talk about LGBTQ when there's already a Q now, right? There's more than that.
Can't simply move that.
Yeah, but the point is this, you never talk about the majority of America, you never talk about the growth of America. All you talk about is how can we divide each other.
Well, the courts don't make the laws, right? They only enforce the laws.
Yeah,
The
but
judicial system's only there to enforce laws, right? The legislative
Let
branch and.
let them interpret what is a human, what is a citizen. If a citizen is a citizen, then they can interpret this thing, you just don't want to give them the power.
I mean, African Americans didn't even have the right to vote, until 70 years ago.
So Supreme Court of
Women
India,
in the US didn't even have the right to vote until 100 years ago.
well, yeah, but look at this, right? So if you look at
All
India,
those were laws though, right?
in-
You could have taken anybody to court and tried to prove your point. It's not a law, right? The judicial branch.
We
the
can
judicial
talk
branch
about it.
are there to basically
we can
enforce
talk about
the
it
law.
all the time, but what have Democrats done to fix it? You know why they won't fix the problem? Because if they fix the problem, then they don't get anything to talk about. That's why they're never gonna fix the gun problems.
I don't know if that's necessarily a law.
What would it take the Democrats to fix the problem when you had 2 years to fix the gun problem? They'll never fix it. In my lifetime, it's not gonna be fixed.
The gun,
Look,
What-
they are
which
the
gun
same
problem are you
as the
talking about
Republicans.
exactly?
They're the same as the Republicans. They're both only there to take care of themselves, no one else.
We should probably get back to the repository of tea.
Yeah, it's already 8:30,
Oh,
but thank you for listening. Honestly, we can fight over it all night. This was the problem. I don't start a political conversation because look, I'll tell you this. If the Democrats fix the problem, because they're coming next time, right? Not next election. Next election, Trump will win. Surprisingly. Because those are the facts. It has nothing to do with me supporting Trump. I think he's a piece of shit. But next election, Trump is gonna win. That's clear. Democrats are gonna come in. We're gonna be here.